What's up, guys? Welcome to the Sports 2.0 show. I am your host, Tanner Kern, and I am joined by my father tonight, Jim Kern, to preview the Indianapolis 500. The 105th running will take place this Sunday with the green flag waving at 12:45. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to talk to you about IndyCar since you were the person that got me into IndyCar. We have been watching the Indianapolis 500 together probably for, I don't know, close to 10 years, I would say. What do you think?
A lot of years.
A lot of years.
You've gotten more interested in it over the last couple.
Yeah, definitely. So Jim Kern, you can follow him at @1_Jim Kern. We're going to be at the Indy 500 putting a lot of content out, so I'm very excited for that. But before we get into tonight's show, I want to talk about the Unser family. First of all, we're going to give our condolences to them. Bobby Unser just passed away at the age of 87 years old. He's a 3-time champion. His brother Al Unser, a 4-time champion, will be on the cover this year of the Indianapolis 500 program, along with Rick Mears and AJ Foyt, the other 2 4-time champions. So we want to give our condolences to them. Do you have any memories of Bobby Unser?
I just remember he was one of the better drivers back in the late 60s, early 70s, and into the early 80s. He had a controversial last Indianapolis 500 win. Took about 5 months to get it right, but they finally did. And he was a hard charger and went on to be a really important broadcaster. In fact, he even won an Emmy for his broadcast work. But he was a crazy guy, and he lived a long life, and he went out a winner. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think the crazy guy narrative defines all these drivers. I mean, you got to be a little tapped out to get in a car at 230 miles an hour and travel around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This isn't like road racing. Indianapolis is different than any other course on the schedule. And I think one of the best parts about the race is the history of it. And now you are kind of a history guru of Indy. I would say you've been going to races for a very long time, since you were a little kid. You've been to multiple races. I am very excited to take in my first one this Sunday in Indianapolis with you. But talk to me a little bit about the races that you have seen in the past.
Well, I had the benefit of moving around all over the country, and when I was 6 and 7 years old, we ended up in Terre Haute, Indiana, for a couple of years. While I was there, got my first exposure to Indy. I think we went on a track tour. And then the following year, which was the 1967 time trials and race, that was my first experience. I do remember it used to be run on a Monday. And unfortunately, that race got rained out after 40-some laps. And I wasn't able to go back to the race on Tuesday because I had to be back in school. But that race was led almost the entire race by the turbine car, driven by Parnelli Jones, and the car broke down with not many laps to go, and AJ Foyt actually won his he won his third race in 1967. And then I followed it pretty much from then on out, not too closely, but I remember the 1972 race. Keep in mind, back in the old days, and I'll say back in the old days, 70s into the 80s, the race was never broadcast live on TV. It was only broadcast on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway network, and carried around the country with radio, and they still do the radio broadcast today. And then the rebroadcast was always done on ABC with Jim McKay. The night of the Indianapolis 500. So I remember many times driving around on Memorial Day, listening to the race, and in one race in particular, it was the 1972 race where Gary Bettenhausen actually was leading the race, drove for Roger Penske. This is early on in Roger Penske's illustrious ownership career. And then he led a lot of laps and broke down near the end. And Mark Donohue, which was another Penske driver, actually won his first and only race, but it was the first race for the captain, Roger Penske. And then he's gone on to win 18 races as a car owner since then. So, and then we took a little bit of a hiatus and went back. My first race as an adult, went back to the 1989 race. Went to the race in '89, which is the program right here. The 90 race here, and the 91 race, which is right here. So kind of just quick highlights on those 3 races. The 89 race, I was a ripe old age of not quite 29. And Emerson Fittipaldi won his first of 2 races that year. Al Unser actually was about ready to take him over Al Unser Jr. was about ready to take him over. And I think on lap 197 or 198, Al Unser Jr. Got pushed into the wall. Emerson went on to win the race, but Al Unser Jr. got out of his car and actually gave Emerson a thumbs up for a hard drive. That was the 89 race. We went back in 90, the famous motorhome trip, which was quite interesting, hanging out in the snake pit and driving a motorhome from Connecticut out there. And that race was actually led almost the entire race by Bobby Rahal. His son, Graham Rahal, drives today. And he was having tire problems, and ultimately Arian Leindyke won his first of 2 races that year. And then in the 91 race, we went back, and Michael Andretti, which is the person that actually led more laps than any other person in the history of the Indy 500 without a win, looked like he was cruising for his first win, led most of the entire race, pretty much a battle with Rick Mears and Michael. And I think with 2 laps to go, Rick Mears ended up beating him in the first turn, where we were sitting, and went on to win his 4th race, which obviously there's only 3 4-time winners. So we've had some stuff, and then haven't been back since. So I'm really excited to go there, especially with you. The one thing I think race fans that have never been to a race don't realize is how fast these cars actually go. The TV gives them no idea of how fast these cars are traveling. So that's one thing that is really exciting to see for your first time, because when you see how fast they go, you realize how crazy they actually are.
Yeah, and I think the special part about Indianapolis is that how fast these cars go. It's a full month event, and they've been there. Drivers have been there for over a month now. They started with the GMR Grand Prix, qualifying last weekend. And this was one clip that I want to show from qualifying. It's Alex Palou on his second run of qualifying. And this just shows the scariness of this structure. These guys are traveling at 230 miles an hour. Even with nobody on the track, all these drivers can crash. One little mistake and you are done at Indianapolis. So what were your biggest surprises from qualifying so far? Obviously, Alex Palou did get in. He's qualified in the 6th spot. So he'll be in the 2nd row in the starting grid. But talk to me a little bit about the surprises that you saw this past weekend in qualifying.
Well, I think the biggest surprises overall was the underperformance of the Penske 4 cars. I think they ran pretty well in practice up to race day, or up to qualifying day. And then all 4 cars really struggled. And in fact, Scott McLaughlin, who is a rookie, only in his 2nd oval race, actually qualified the best out of the Penske 4 cars. So I think that's one of the big headlines for the month. I think the Chip Ganassi cars ran strong, always run strong at the Speedway. Scott Dixon obviously got the pole. Alex Palou is sitting right there, and that's a really strong group of cars. And then the Carpenter cars, obviously with Renus VK and Ed Carpenter. Ed Carpenter always runs strong at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I think he's been on the pole 3 times. He was best finish was a 2nd place, but you obviously can't count him out. So at that point, I think they had some groups, and then there's some single drives that really were impressive. But overall, it's the big money teams that typically do well qualifying wise. A couple dark horses always come in there, but I think Penske struggled in qualifying this year as they did last year. So I think that was probably the biggest surprise that I would think.
Yeah, now I want to focus on 3 headlines from qualifying. First thing is Scott Dixon, obviously the 2008 Indianapolis 500 champion. In 2008, he did win the pole, and he ended up winning the race. He just earned his 4th pole this year, edging Colton Herta by barely any time. Colton Herta, one of the best young drivers in the sport, already has 5-6 wins under his belt so far in the series. But do you think Scott Dixon has a realistic chance of winning out of the pole position for the 2nd time?
I do. I think he's clearly the favorite. I mean, he's got the most experience. I mean, I think he's led a number of laps there over the course of time. I mean, I think he's came in second 3 different times. He's been right there. He finished second last year. He's got one of the best teams. He's in his prime right now at 40 years old. I think he's at 55 IndyCar wins. He's clearly, coming up to surpass, I think, second place in the all-time win list. So I do think he's probably, he'll lead laps, and I think as long as they don't get into trouble and the pit stops are fine, I think you'll see him, near the end fighting for the win.
Now, Will Power, obviously another champion, a 2018 champion, did not have a great qualification on either day, really. Here is a clip from Sunday in last chance qualifying where he bumped the wall and narrowly missed the cut. But he was still able to hold on with a decent time. The people behind him did not race well. Simona Di Silvestro, which we'll talk about in a minute, ended up getting the 33rd spot. He is in the 32nd spot in the race to start in the starting grid. But bumps the wall here. What did you think of Will Power in qualifying? He just didn't have a fast car all weekend, really. But
yeah,
what are your thoughts on him?
I think he obviously struggled with the car, but he's a champion. He's won a lot of races for Penske over the years. In fact, they just re-upped him for a 4-year extension on his contract. He's definitely one of the headliners out there, but you can just see he stuck his foot in the gas, and even though his car was struggling, he kept it together. I mean, he was inches away from a disaster. And, most guys would have pulled their foot off the gas and lifted, and he just kept his foot in it. I think he had a 2:27 last lap, but, he had that after hitting the wall and brushing the wall. So, I mean, it just shows you, not only the skill they have, but, the guts. Most people would have put their foot off the gas and just kind of coasted. I mean, he kept in it because he knew how important it was to get actually in the race. So,
yeah. Now, Will Power is plus 2,500 out of the 32nd position in the race. Would you put a bet down on Will Power to win out of that spot?
I would say no, but you never know. A lot of it comes down to pit stops and strategy. At that point, I mean, there have people that have won from the back of the pack before. It doesn't happen often. You need a lot of breaks and a lot of luck. But he's definitely skilled enough to do it. The one thing I know about the Penske cars is they're going to be prepared on race day, as they always are. I mean, I think they've got a lot to prove, and you'll see him make a run. I think the challenge of being at the back, obviously, is a lot of stuff can happen in front of you. And that makes it a little bit more critical. I mean, that's the one advantage at least the leaders have, at least for the first, 20, 30 laps, is they're running in clean air. They're running without a lot of people ahead of them until the lapping of the cars start. After that, all bets are off. But, if you can get through the first couple laps in the pack and start weaving your way up through, I think you got a good shot of, having a decent finish.
Yeah, now I would love to see Will Power win out of that spot. I might put $10 down on him in Indianapolis or Indiana, where betting is legal there, just to see if he could pull it off from that position. And then the final storyline of qualifying was Paretta Autosport makes history. Now, Paretta Autosport is owned by Beth Paretta. She tried to get a car in the race in 2016, but was unsuccessful. She was successful this year with Simona Di Silvestro. This will be her fifth IndyCar, or fifth Indianapolis 500 start. In 2010, she was the Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year with a 14th place finish. This is huge because Paretta Autosport is the first female-dominated company or race company to win or to get a driver in the race. What were your thoughts on this storyline coming out of the weekend? And does Simona Di Silvestro have a shot in the 33rd spot?
I think it's a great accomplishment. She's obviously an accomplished driver. You don't qualify for the Indy 500 5 or 6 times without being good and skilled. The one thing that's interesting about the Paretta team is they're actually being, managed or run in the background by Penske. So, they've got good cars. They've got good quality pit crew. It is interesting that it's an all women crew, and I'm really excited to see how they actually do in the race. But realistically, she doesn't have I don't think she's got the car nor the skill to keep up with some of the hot guns that have been around for a while, and some of the young guns that are really pushing hard out there. But clearly she can run in the middle of the pack. Probably top 10 finish would be incredible for her. But probably look to see her be a mid pack run, assuming she can stay out of trouble in the early stages of the race.
Yeah, and this weekend is the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500. And we're going to talk about that young first row, the youngest first row actually in race history, with Rinus VeeKay and Colton Herta. Colton Herta, the 21-year-old, 5 wins under his belt already in the NTT IndyCar Series. Rinus VeeKay picked up his first win at the GMR Grand Prix a couple weekends ago at the Indianapolis road course. These guys are fast, and the one thing I noticed about them in qualifying is that they are truly fearless. Out of the two of them, who has the better day on Sunday?
Actually, that's a really tough question because they're both really good. I mean, Colton Herta hasn't won on an oval yet. I think he's won all of his races on street courses. Obviously Rinus won a couple weeks ago with the GMR Grand Prix, which is a road course, and got a little taste of what was out there. But there's one thing winning some road courses, another thing running 225, 230 miles an hour around a track for 500 miles. So, if I had to put my bet on either, I'd probably put it on Colton Herta, just because he's a little more skilled and he's got a little more experience. But these guys are fearless, as you said. And I think Rinus VeeKay, the older you get, the less the more fear goes into you. And these guys haven't experienced a lot of accidents. They haven't experienced a lot of things that some maybe the more accomplished guys. They definitely can stick their foot in the gas and take it around the track, which is scary. I mean, Colton Herta, I think, is going to be a really great race driver with a little more time in the seat, as Rinus is. I mean, you're 23 years old. Can you imagine, driving around Indianapolis at 20 years old?
I'm too big.
At 200, that's true. At 200 and some miles an hour. But I like them both. I like them both. And Alex Palou is another young guy right behind him. I think they're all three of those guys you got to look out for them on race day. But I would put my money on Colton Herta over Rinus.
Yeah, I would too. I think I'm going to bet Colton Herta to win the race overall. It's going to be my big money bet for the weekend. I want to talk about the Andretti curse. And is 2020 the year, or 2021 the year it's broken? Probably not. Last year, Marco had the pole and he still did not finish well. The Andretti curse obviously started back with Mario back in the day when he won the race in the 60s, and Andretti has not won ever since. One question for you before we really dive into the Andretti curse. Why is Colton Herta, who's a second generation racer, and Marco Andretti, who has only won one race in his time in IndyCar, and he's a third generation racer, what's the disparity between the two if they both come from good roots?
It's hard. It's really hard to say. I mean, Colton Herta's dad used to be called High Speed Herta, Brian Herta. He's his race strategist right now. I think Michael Andretti is Marco's race strategist, or has been his race strategist, and he's got a lot of advisement from his grandfather, Mario. But just because you're a namesake doesn't mean you're good. Obviously, Andretti's had a lot of breaks and been able to get into the sport. I mean, as a rookie, he almost won the race. I mean, he got edged out by a hair. I mean, I think he's one of the top 4 or 5 finishes in race history, and he was leading right up to the end as a rookie. But you know what? He's never been able to really fulfill that potential. Where you see Colton Herta's already won 5 races, and I think that they're great race drivers. But what separates the difference is just minuscule. It's guts, it's skill, it's line, it's setup. I mean, there's so many factors involved that happen. I mean, they both have great cars, but you saw last year Andretti won the pole, and really from the first lap, he was a non-factor. I think he ran 6th, 7th, and sub all day. He never could run up with the lead pack. And I think he ended up finishing 12th or 13th. But overall, he's still a great race driver. So
is 2021 the year the Andretti curse is broken? I don't think it is. What about you?
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I mean, I think he qualified 25th or so, and he's kind of in the back of the pack. Right now, he's a part-time driver this year. It's pretty tough for a part-time driver to just jump in a car and be fast, for one thing, even though he's obviously, I think 13, 14 years as a race driver here. But ultimately, Mario Andretti had a number of opportunities, finished second a couple times, had a couple bad breaks. The one thing about both Mario and Michael, they both put their foot in the gas all the time. They wanted to lead every lap they could lead, and they didn't care. They'd rather break down than win and instead of kind of sitting back in the back of the pack and coming at the end. They just drove really, really hard. I think I think Marco's a little more reserved. He's not quite as daring, but I don't see them breaking that curse this year. In fact, it may never get broken. So,
well, I think if it doesn't get broken this year, this could be the best shot ever to break it. You never know, because maybe as a part-time driver, maybe as a guy in 25th, not expecting to win, he has a chance. Last year, he had the pole. I remember the whole storyline before the day was everyone was interviewing Mario, saying, "Hey, what do you think about your grandson being in the pole position? What do you think about your grandson being in the pole position?" And then he didn't do anything in the race. So
yeah,
maybe this is the year to do it. It'd be a good storyline to see when we were there. But again, I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, the one thing you got to keep in mind too is Andretti, from a car ownership standpoint, has won a lot of races. I mean, I think he's won 5 or 6 Indy 500s as a car owner, and they've got a great team. They've got a number of cars in the race, and Colton Hurd is in one of those cars. So, I mean, it's the 3 top teams are the Penske's, the Andretti's, and the Chip Ganassi. So, I think you got a really good shot of a winner out of one of those 3 teams if history history repeats itself.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to talk about before we actually start breaking down the field is, what do you think the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is going to look like at 40% capacity? Now, 40% capacity is not like you would think at like a Red Sox game or a Yankees game when there's 5, 6, 7,000 people in the stands. I mean, there's still going to be a significant number of people, but again, no snake pit this year, no concerts this year. The pre-race festivities are going to be very limited. Carb day is limited. Is it still going to have that Indianapolis Motor Speedway feel, Indy 500 feel, that magic about it with 40%?
I think it will. I mean, keep in mind, there's still going to be 125, 130,000 people, there. Even at qualifying, there was a decent crowd in qualifying, and it definitely makes a difference versus seeing, an empty stands. When they did the race in August last year, they didn't allow anybody in. So I think the race drivers, do they care? I don't think so. They're focusing on the track, but you'd be amazed. A few fans make a big difference as far as just the noise that's going around the track and the cheers and everything like that. So I do think it will be, and I think they also, the way they're spacing out and putting people in seats, they're going to do it in a way that it's going to look relatively full around the course. So I definitely think it's going to be. I mean, it's going to be the largest, post-COVID sporting event from an attendance standpoint in any sporting event. So, today,
making history.
Yeah, making history. Definitely.
Making history. There we go. So we're going to start breaking down the drivers in this race. Here's a clip from the last day of practice. Just a short little clip of them on the track. Gets you excited for next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, the 105th running of the Indianapolis 500. But the drivers will not be allowed on the track now until Friday for Carb Day, which is the final day of practice. They'll only have 2 hours of practice time that day. So imagining one run per driver. It's going to be very interesting. We got a lot of great drivers in this race. Let's start with row 11. Sage Power at plus 10,000, Will Power at plus 2,500, and Simona Di Silvestro at plus 50,000. To give you guys a little comparison of what these numbers mean, Simona Di Silvestro, if you put $1 on her to win and she won, you would walk away with $500. And all these odds are courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. So I imagine, I know your answer to this question out of the back row. Who do you think can win? Probably Will Power, right?
Yeah, Will Power is the only contender in that group to win a race. I mean, Sage Karam, I think, is a 6 or 7 time starter, good driver, has a lot of bad luck at Indy, crashes a lot for whatever reason. And Simona, we talked about her earlier, but yeah, I mean, if anybody's winning out of that last row, it's going to be Will Power, that's for sure.
Yeah. Now in row 10, we have Stephen Wilson, Max Chilton, and Dalton Kellett, a lot of other non-factor guys, would you say?
I would say so, although Dalton Kellett's probably got the best shot out of those three. Stephen Wilson's driving for Andretti in a fourth car or fifth car, and Dalton, I think, is driving for AJ Foyt. So, pretty even there. You're going to see them, be back markers in most of the day, I think.
And then in row 9, we have our first former champion. Simon Pagenaud won in 2019. He's plus 2,200 to win, along with Marco Andretti and Sebastian Bourdais. 3 quality drivers in this race. Out of this group, who are you picking to win?
I think Simon. No doubt out of that group. I mean, Simon, former winner 2018. I think 2018, 2019. 2019 winner. Sebastian Bourdais, 4-time, IndyCar champion, very good driver, coming back into the series, driving for AJ Foyt this year. But I think Simon, assuming they can get their race setups done, I think he's got a decent shot to get up front relatively quickly. Yeah.
Now, in the next row, we got J.R. Hildebrand, Santino Ferrucci, and then Juan Pablo Montoya. Obviously, a name we have to talk about, 2-time champion, 2000 and 2015. Stepped away from the sport, actually, to help his son, who will be stepping into the IndyCar ranks very soon. A young, promising driver there. But Juan Pablo Montoya is back for this race at plus 3,300. Do you think Montoya has a shot?
I don't think so because of the car. He's not in a top tier car. He's got great skills. He won in 2000, 2015. I mean, 15 years apart, but he was in top quality equipment in both cases. I think he drove for Penske one year and Ganassi the other to win those races. But clearly should be a factor. J.R. Hildebrand, just about won the race as a rookie and crashed on the last lap. And Santino Ferrucci, another young gun, but had a tough month. He crashed, I think, in practice leading up to qualifying, but definitely a good driver.
And you talk about another young driver who did not have a good month, did not have good qualifying times. Joseph Newgarden at plus 1,400. He's going to be in row 7. This FanDuel thinks he has a chance of winning, obviously, with the plus 1,400 relative to Connor Daly and Jack Harvey in this row. But what was wrong with Newgarden in qualifying?
I think it came down to the whole Penske setup. I mean, again, he's one of the. I mean, there's 4 Penske drivers in the race. 2 have won the Indy 500 before. Newgarden hasn't, but Newgarden is a multiple champion and has won a lot of races for Penske. I like him a lot. It really comes down to their race day setup. Can he get up? Can they get it adjusted and get that car near the front? Because if they can, then he's going to run with them. So. Yeah.
Now we're starting to get into the big dogs of the race in row 6, James Hinchcliffe, Scott McLaughlin, and Graham Rahal, 3 talented drivers. Rahal is obviously the favorite to win the race. One of the top ranked drivers in this year's race. Out of Rahal, Hinchcliffe, and McLaughlin, who has the best day, and does Rahal actually make a push at the championship?
I think Rahal definitely's got an opportunity. Obviously second gen driver. He's got good equipment. Obviously drives for the Lanigan team with his dad and Letterman. Scott McLaughlin, highest ranking Penske driver, but a rookie. and Hincliffe, multiple time, runner here, running in good equipment with Andretti. But, I think Graham Rahal is probably the best opportunity out of that row, to get up there and race. He's led laps in the past, and he runs near the front, and he's good on ovals. So I definitely see that being a good opportunity for him.
Now in row 5, I think this is one of the most interesting rows in the whole race. You got Pietro Fittipaldi, the grandson of Emerson Fittipaldi, Felix Rosenqvist, and Takuma Sato, the 2-time champion, 2017 and 2020. I feel like Sato is a little under the radar in the sport. What do you think about him?
Well, he's a good driver, ex-Formula One driver, came over here, 2-time champion, but he's not a hard charger. He's a more reserved driver. I mean, he won last year and took advantage right near the end, but he ran near the front of the pack a lot, but didn't lead the most laps, but still won the race. So, clearly the ability to win races, and there's no doubt about it. I don't think Pietro's ready at this point. He's a part-time driver. He's in a lot of different equipment, runs some Formula One as a backup driver. Rosenqvist is a good driver, but another young guy. Sato's probably got the best shot, but I'm not sure, whether he's a factor, this year as he was last. So
yeah. And then we have another former winner in this row, Alexander Rossi, the 2016 champion, along with Ed Jones and Pato O'Ward. I like Pato in this row. What do you think?
They threw a challenge down for him in Texas, and he won his first race. I mean, obviously, as a great driver, he's got really good equipment. He's running a McLaren. He's got I think he's got his sights set on Formula One, to be honest with you. But, while he's in IndyCar, he's trying to take advantage of it and run it as much as possible. But, Alexander Rossi, former winner in great equipment with Andretti. You've got these guys are all capable of winning races. So, but Pato's in that group with VK, Colton Herta, and Alex Palou. I mean, they got lead feet, and they got no fear.
Yeah. Now, do you think Helio Castroneves still has a lead foot, no fear? I mean, the only 3-time winner in this race, 01, 02, and then 2009. You also have Ryan Hunter-Reay, 2014 champion in this row, along with Marcus Ericsson. Is Helio Castroneves, does he have a realistic chance of winning his 4th, becoming the 4th driver to win 4 Indy 500s?
I think he's not in the equipment he was in before with Penske, but he's driving with a chip. I mean, he's driving with a second-rate team, and he outperformed all the Penske drivers in qualifying. And obviously, he's got an opportunity to put a 4th one up there. There's only 3 guys that have won 4. He's been chasing that elusive 4th for a long time. Do I think he's going to win? No. But do I think he has an opportunity to win? Absolutely. He's a great driver. He's still young enough, and he's won in a lot of different types of cars. But a lot of it comes down to strategy, pit crew, clean pit stops, staying out of trouble, and being in a decent car, which obviously he's got a decent car. So.
Then you got Ed Carpenter in row 2 with Tony Kanaan, the 2013 champion, and then Alex Palou, one of the young guns in this race that's going to make a push with Colton Herta and Rinus VeeKay for that victory on Sunday. Does Ed Carpenter have a chance of winning this year as a part-time driver?
I mean, he does. I think he went part-time this year. He stepped down and really concentrating on the ovals. He's always strong in Indianapolis. I think he's had, second place. He's sat on the pole 3 times. He obviously can go fast. But I got to be honest with you. I like Tony Kanaan. I really like Tony Kanaan in this race. I mean, he's near the end of his prime. But he's in a great car. He took over the Jimmy Johnson car for this race because Jimmy Johnson's wife didn't want him to run on ovals this year. He's sitting in a Chip Ganassi car. He's sitting in a great spot in the second row, and he can still drive. So I would tell you that's my dark horse, Tony Kanaan in this race. A one-time champion, but he's led a lot of laps at this track, and he knows how to drive, and he's not out of it at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
There you guys heard it. Sports 2.0 Network family. Jim Kern, IndyCar expert, just said Tony Kanaan. That's the dark horse. $100 bet on Kanaan will win you $1,600 from FanDuel Sportsbook. So consider that bet for sure. Then we got Scott Dixon, Colton Herta, and Rinus VeeKay in the front row, the youngest front row in Indianapolis 500 history. Obviously, Scott Dixon, the favorite at plus 350, but sometimes it's tough for the favorite to win. I mean, he has had the pole 4 times. This will be his 4th. 3 times he's won once out of the 3 previous times that he was the pole winner. Does Scott Dixon really have a chance of winning as a 3-time pole winner before this when he's only won 1? Do you think he makes it his second win this year?
You can't count him out. I mean, he's sitting 9th in the all-time lap leader at Indianapolis at 452 laps. He's still got a lot of years in him. I think he's clearly the favorite. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he sat on the pole. When he won before, he's been on the pole at 4 times, I think. He's finished second 3 times. Assuming he doesn't get into trouble, you're not going to lose money putting any money on him. That's for sure. He's going to run strong, run up there all day, and he can definitely win. So
there you go. I like that saying. We're going to put that on a t-shirt. You're not going to lose any money putting money on him. All right. So final question of the evening. Let me know in the comments what everyone here listening thinks, and we'll share it on the screen. But I want to get your take on this. Who wins the 105th Indianapolis 500?
Dixon.
Dixon, really?
I'm saying Scott Dixon. I'm gonna, you don't always want to go with the pole setter, but the guy knows how to win. He knows how to win races. He dominated down in Texas on the oval, the first race of the 2-race weekend. He's always strong in Indianapolis. I mean, conceivably, he could lead 100 laps here. I mean, he could go from 9th place on the lap leaderboard up to like 3rd or 2nd, depending on the number of laps he lets. I mean, he is really, really strong, and he's only 40 years old. So, I think he's got a couple, 3 years left of being a top-notch driver, unless he doesn't want to, do it anymore. But he's shooting for a couple, records. And I do think he wins that race. But, Kanaan, I think Tony Kanaan, my dark horse out of the same stable. And then obviously Colton Herta would be kind of my 3rd choice, assuming he stays out of trouble.
Yeah, I think Scott Dixon is a great choice. Obviously, the guy knows how to win races. 51 wins in his career. That puts him at 3rd all-time on the list, approaching that 2nd spot. So that's a great pick out of you by Scott Dixon. I'm going to go with one of the young guns. I think Colton Herta, Rinus VeeKay, or Alex Palou. Those are my 3 to win. I know I'm not picking one, but I'm just going to say a person under the age of 24, 25 years old. That's going to be my pick. The new generation of IndyCar drivers are coming along, and these 3 are leading the charge. So I'm going to go with one of them. So any final thoughts? What are you most looking forward to this weekend in Indianapolis?
I'm just excited to be there. I mean, I didn't know when we'd get an opportunity to go back. Obviously, you getting me these tickets was a really great birthday gift and Father's Day gift, and I'm excited to be there. But I think just having race fans back in stands is going to be really, really exciting for everybody. And when they shoot I guess ladies and gentlemen or drivers start your engines, it's going to be pretty exciting. I'm excited for you to actually see what it looks like, because you realize these guys are just incredible. If anybody doesn't call a race driver an athlete, they have no idea the stresses that are put on their body to do that. So it's quite amazing.
Yep, definitely. So make sure you check out this podcast, guys, the podcast version of this show on Apple and Spotify. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. We had a big crowd tonight. Really appreciate that. Check us out on NBC. We'll be in the Northwest Vista six, 7, 8 rows off the track, which who knows if those will be good seats or not. The green flag is set to wave at 12:45 on NBC, so make sure you check that out. Thanks for watching, guys. And of course, thank you to my father, Jim Kern, for joining me on the show, an IndyCar guru. If you guys want to reach out to him, just search Jim Kern on Twitter and you will be able to find him. Gives a lot of good IndyCar takes on there. So, Dad, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Excited.